All right, guys, let's talk about getting your first flat fee digital real estate deal when you have no previous sales experience. And I say when you have no previous sales experience because if you have sales experience in another industry, selling another product or another service, it's not as applicable. But for those of you that are like, oh my gosh, I don't have sales experience, sales is my weakness, I just don't know how to sell. If I just described you, if you've ever said any of those things, listen up and listen very, very carefully. Now, first of all, I have to remind everybody the way that I approach selling and pre-selling flat fee deals, you do not need sales experience. Let me repeat, you do not need sales experience. If you have it, does it help? Of course it does. But the majority, 90+% of the people that I've worked with, and I've worked with over 350 people, the majority of the people I work with have never had sales experience. And most of them have said, I hate sales, I don't like talking to people, it's not my thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But let me tell you this, and I'm gonna tell you this by telling you a quick story of how I got my first deal in sales. Let's rewind back to 2013. It's the first week of January. I have just signed up and committed to go start selling door to door. The previous 20 years of my life, 22 years, 21, whatever I was, had never sold anything. I had worked on a farm, I had driven tractors, I had moved pipe, I had done all that kind of stuff, all that manual labor, blue collar kind of work. Well, I take that back. I did work at Staples and ran a cash register, and I thought I was a salesman because I was selling pens when people came in to get pens. But that's another conversation for another day. So what happens is we go on a trip. Okay, this is the week of New Year's. And of all places, because you guys have heard me, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, of all places we go to Southern California. The managers of my little team, my little group, they're like, hey, let's go to California, the weather's decent, blah, 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 blah. And so down we went. We go down, I had done a little bit of training, still never sold anything. I've done a couple of role plays. I kind of knew the product I was selling home security systems at the time, but I didn't know much, okay? Like very, very, very minimal. I did know the price. I did know what the package came with. That's it. If you would have asked me, what is this? What's cellular versus Wi-Fi? Some like nuance, I would not have known, okay? And here's how I got my first deal. First day, I trained with somebody. I watched somebody else get 2 sales. It was my manager at the time. And I was like, dude, this can't be that hard. This guy just got 2 deals. I'm as good as him. Like all those arrogant things that I thought. Second day, I got cut loose. I got fed to the wolves. And I remember getting dropped off and I put my binder on the corner and I straightened my shirt and I fixed my belt and all those nerves, those emotions. I was physically sick thinking about knocking that first door. And I looked around and I looked for I tried to find like the sweetest old grandma. I was looking for like the flowers and the, the drapes that had the flowers. And I was looking for this well-kept lawn. And I was like, let me find this really sweet old grandma. Probably not gonna sell her, but at least I can get like the cobwebs out. So I walk up to the door, boom, 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 knock on the door. And guys, I'm telling you, if you guys watch UFC, whether you do, whether you don't, if you don't, Google Dana White. It wasn't Dana White, but his doppelganger. Big old guy, bald head, jacked out of his mind, just answers the door. And he rips it open, and in about, 2 to 3 seconds, boom. Told me to get lost, not interested, just slammed the door. And boom, the Band-Aid was ripped off. And what I did the rest of the day is I was a ferocious knocker. I was knocking door after door after door after door after door. I'm like, I gotta get a sale. I gotta get a sale. I was 100% commission. So finally, after a couple hours, I'm like, dude, this is kind of cold. This kind of sucks. And what did I sign up for? So I'm like, let me use my head. So I started looking for people in the area that had already purchased our product. I'm like, let me go get a referral, right? So I start and I go down the street, and I remember walking up the street, and on the left-hand side, I saw the sign of the company I was selling for. This is my company. I'm like, oh, it's family, whatever. They're part of this family, this community of security system people. I knock on the door, cannot remember their names. I knock on the door, and I'm like, hey, and it was the worst way to ask for a referral. Like, you want to make sure to not be that just direct and like asking for something with nothing in return, but whatever. I just knock on the door. I'm like, hey, is there anybody around here that you know that could benefit from what we're doing? You have it? Do you like? I think I did make sure they were happy. Anyway, he's like, actually, you know what? George across the street, when you guys came around last time, he came over and asked me about it because he talked to the guy and he never did it. And I think he's actually kind of interested. So you may want to check with George. And guys, listen to what I'm about to say. I kid you not, I turn around, I thank this gentleman, and I'm walking down his steps to the main road. And as I'm walking down, guess who comes down the street? George. It sounds made up. I understand. It totally sounds like the guy behind me, oh, there's George. I'm like, there's no way that's actually George. I walk over, immediately sprint over to him. Hey man, blah, 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 I'm with so-and-so company. My name's Nick. Like just the most aggressive pitch ever. Everything done wrong. And George literally says the following after listening to me just vomit all over him for a minute or so. He says, why don't you come inside? Why don't you come inside? And I walked inside the house and I sold him the biggest package we had with the longest contract and got paid the highest commission I could have on my very first day. And it's on my own, very first day on my own. The lesson that I want to point out here is this. And I will tell you, the second day, I knocked all day, last door I sold. Third day, all day, last door I sold. And I learned this because I did it. All the people that I hired and trained and recruited, it happened to them. When you have no sales experience, I hate to break it to you, but a lot of times your first deal is going to be by you talking to enough of the right type of business owner that you come across what we call a laydown. That is somebody who is ready to go, somebody who talked about doing advertising earlier that year, or earlier that month, or earlier that week with their partner or their spouse, somebody who was literally having the conversation of, hey, we need to get more business. Whatever it is, you are going to have to talk to enough people that you're going to come across what we call a laydown. And I'm telling you that because it doesn't matter who you are. I have done this now for 10 years, and almost every single person I've ever trained, their very first deal is they just knocked enough doors of the right doors. And let's translate this to what we do. They talk to enough of the business owners that are already sold on advertising in those cities that they eventually came across one who was ready to buy because they had talked about it, they had thought about it, or they just were a good fit. So for those of you that are brand new, I'm gonna tell you right now, or let me even say this, those of you that came in to this business and got your first deal and thought you were hot stuff, chances are, now some of you guys, maybe that's different, but chances are if you had no sales experience, you just talked to the right person at the right time and it was just numbers, okay? And what's cool is every deal after that, you start to use a little bit of skill. So the next deal, you might have the person that's, he's ready to go or she's ready to go, but you're using a lot more skill and you talk to the right person. And then a little more skill and a little more skill. And then you get to the point where you can talk to somebody who's kind of warm, not really warm. Maybe they've had the thought, maybe they haven't. Maybe they're just paying for Google Ads. They've never thought about switching, paying for Home Advisor, but you have done this enough. You know what to say, how to say it, who to say it to, that you're gonna sell those deals, not just the piping hot ones. So I'm telling all of you, if you've been doing this and you're discouraged because you've tried it a couple times, keep doing it. Now, if you're not talking to the right people and you're not talking to business owners who are already sold on advertising in the cities that you need to be targeting, which you need to be targeting the right cities, I have an entire framework for that. If you're not in my free Facebook group or my Discord, quick plug for both of those. They're entirely free, but be careful. You probably will end up buying what I'm selling at some point. Just a small caveat. I'm not hiding that. Point is this, guys, don't get discouraged. You're going to get a deal. Your first deal, however, if you don't have sales experience, is probably going to be a laydown. So if you haven't gotten one yet and you've talked to a bunch of business owners, you're either not talking to the right business owners or you haven't talked to enough, period. And if you have got a deal and you think you're hot stuff, go get another one. Because chances are the first one you got had a lot to do with you talking to the right person. Now, you still have to have a good pitch. You still have to have a good product for that person. But I'm telling you, for those of you that are discouraged, keep making offers. Keep talking to business owners, because even me, myself, and I consider myself a top tier salesperson at this point, when I started out, the guy that I first sold my very first ever product to was the biggest laydown on planet Earth. Any one of you guys with very basic knowledge of my product could have knocked on that same door and sold that exact same security system because he was ready. The second day, the wife was interested. The husband was not that interested. But again, she had thought about it. I consider it kind of a laydown. Third day, let me finish with this. The third day, I knock on this door all day. We're about to head home to Utah, and I get the text message from my driver, says, hey, we're leaving in 15 minutes. I'm just knocking. I'm like, I'm not going home on what we call a bagel. That's a 0 on the day. I knock, boom, knock on this 55 to 60-year-old guy's door. I give my pitch. He's listening through the crack of the door, and he goes, it's funny you knock on my door. We just saw the commercial for your company like 2 days ago. Come in, let's come in and take a seat. Got me a glass of water or a drink or whatever, and I just pitched the thing and no objections, no nothing. They were ready to roll. So my first 3 deals were laydowns. I just talked to enough of the right people at the right time with the right product, and I got those first 3 deals, and then I slowly became better and better and better. So guys, don't give up. Your first deal is right around the corner. Talk to the right business owners in the right cities with the right niche with a good pitch, and you're gonna get your deal.